Welcome to Bad Guy Compendium, the ultimate podcast for fans of comic books, movies, and the unforgettable villains that make them unforgettable. I'm your host, Finley Strong. The Tall Man is one of the most enigmatic and terrifying villains in the horror genre, originating from the Phantasm film series created by writer-director Don Coscarelli. Played by the late Angus Scrimm, the Tall Man made his first appearance in the 1979 cult classic Phantasm, and he became the central antagonist throughout the franchise, spanning 5 films. Unlike many horror villains who rely on brute force or slasher-style violence, the Tall Man is a more cerebral, almost otherworldly figure. He represents not only physical horror, but also a deep existential terror rooted in themes of death, reality, and the unknown. The Tall Man's motives are cryptic, but his presence is unmistakably sinister. His character is tied to the world of the dead, resurrection, and interdimensional travel, giving him a uniquely metaphysical quality compared to more traditional horror antagonists. With his supernatural strength, shape-shifting abilities, and army of grotesque minions, the Tall Man is a relentless force who bends reality to his will. His cold, emotionless demeanor and eerie catchphrase "boy" have become iconic within the horror genre. Although Phantasm may not have achieved the mainstream success of other horror franchises like Halloween or Friday the 13th, the Tall Man has earned his place as one of the most enduring and terrifying figures in horror cinema. His influence extends beyond the films, leaving a lasting impact on pop culture and serving as an inspiration for other supernatural villains across various media. The Tall Man's backstory is deliberately shrouded in mystery, and part of his appeal lies in the fact that much about him is left unexplained, even across multiple films. However, the central elements of his origin and motivations are revealed slowly throughout the Phantasm series. In Phantasm, we are introduced to the Tall Man as the undertaker of the Morningside Cemetery. While at first he appears to be a typical mortician, it quickly becomes apparent that he is much more than that. The Tall Man has the power to transform the dead into shrunken, reanimated corpses referred to as lurkers that serve him as slaves. These creatures are sent to another dimension to work for him, an aspect that hints at his true nature as an interdimensional being. The Tall Man was once a human named Jebediah Morningside, a mortician in the 19th century who became obsessed with death and the possibility of life after death. Morningside experimented with interdimensional travel, eventually building a portal or dimensional fork that allowed him to traverse between worlds. During his journey, something happened to Morningside, transforming him into the malevolent, otherworldly entity known as the Tall Man. The films leave much of his transformation and ultimate goals ambiguous. Is he harvesting the dead for some alien overlord, or is he the ruler of his own twisted dimension? Does he intend to conquer Earth, or is his reign of terror more localized to those unfortunate enough to stumble upon his machinations? These questions remain largely unanswered, giving the Tall Man an otherworldly and unknowable quality that makes him even more terrifying. Phantasm, 1979, the birth of a cult classic. The first Phantasm film, released in 1979, serves as the foundation of the Tall Man's mythology and sets the tone for the entire series. The movie follows 13-year-old Mike Pearson, his older brother Jody, and their friend Reggie as they investigate strange occurrences at the local Morningside Cemetery. After the death of several local townspeople, Mike becomes suspicious of the Tall Man, the cemetery's caretaker, and soon discovers that the Tall Man is not only stealing corpses, but also turning them into lurkers, dwarfed, zombie-like creatures used as slaves in another dimension. The Tall Man's powers are introduced incrementally, heightening the sense of mystery and dread surrounding him. He possesses superhuman strength, can manipulate reality, and commands a deadly arsenal of silver spheres, flying orbs equipped with blades and drills that kill anyone who tries to stop him. These spheres quickly became one of the most iconic elements of the Phantasm franchise. The first Phantasm film ends on a note of uncertainty, as Mike wakes up from what appears to be a nightmare, only to face the Tall Man again, hinting that the line between reality and nightmare is forever blurred. The film was a low-budget production, but became a cult classic due to its unique blend of surrealism, horror, and science fiction. Phantasm 2, 1988, expanding the mythos. 9 years after the original, Phantasm I was released in 1988, continuing the story directly from the ending of the first film. The sequel, which had a larger budget and a more polished production, picked up with Mike and Reggie pursuing the tall man across the country in an attempt to stop his sinister plans. In this film, it becomes clear that the tall man has been systematically ravaging small towns, stealing corpses to transform into his lurker minions, and leaving death and destruction in his wake. Phantasm II expands upon the tall man's powers and reveals more about his dimensional portals, showing that he can effortlessly travel between worlds. The film also introduces Liz Reynolds, a young woman who shares a psychic connection with Mike and becomes entangled in the battle against the tall man. Throughout the film, the tall man's methods grow more insidious as he uses psychological manipulation and dreamlike sequences to prey on his victims. While Phantasm I added more action and special effects, it retained the dreamlike atmosphere of the original. It is also the film that solidified the tall man's status as a formidable, otherworldly antagonist, confirming that his plans are much larger than just one small town. Phantasm III Lord of the Dead, 1994, delving deeper into the tall man's powers. The third installment in the series, Phantasm I Lord of the Dead 1994, delves even deeper into the tall man's powers and introduces new elements to his mythology. Picking up where Phantasm I left off, the film follows Mike, Reggie, and a new group of allies as they continue their pursuit of the tall man. This film expands the tall man's abilities, showing that he has not only mastered death, but can also manipulate the living in various ways. He is revealed to have the power to reanimate corpses, creating new and more dangerous types of minions to do his bidding. He also exhibits increased control over the silver spheres, including the ability to transfer his consciousness into them. Phantasm I takes the story in an even more surreal direction, with the lines between reality and dreams becoming increasingly blurred. The film's cryptic ending, in which Mike seems to be succumbing to the tall man's influence, left fans with more questions than answers, further adding to the mystery of the character. Phantasm IV Oblivion, 1998, The Origins of the Tall Man. Phantasm IV Oblivion 1998 is notable for exploring the origins of the tall man in more depth than any previous film. In this entry, Mike embarks on a journey of self-discovery while also delving into the tall man's past, seeking answers about his connection to the enigmatic figure. Using flashbacks and previously unseen footage from the original Phantasm, the film reveals that the tall man was once Jebediah Morningside, a 19th century mortician who conducted experiments on death and interdimensional travel. Morningside's discovery of a dimensional gateway led to his transformation into the tall man, although the exact nature of this transformation remains mysterious. Throughout the film, the tall man continues to manipulate Mike, seemingly preparing him to become his successor. Phantasm IV explores themes of destiny, mortality, and the cyclical nature of life and death. The film also suggests that the tall man's influence stretches far beyond the physical world as he exerts control over time, space, and the minds of his victims. Phantasm Ravager, 2016, The Final Chapter. Released in 2016, Phantasm Ravager serves as the final chapter in the Phantasm series and the last appearance of Angus Scrimm as the tall man before his passing. This film brings together many of the key characters from the previous entries, including Mike, Reggie, and Jody, in a final confrontation with the tall man. Phantasm Ravager is perhaps the most surreal of all the films, with its narrative jumping between different realities, time periods, and dream states. The film blurs the lines between what is real and what is imagined, leaving the audience questioning whether the entire series has been a dream or whether the characters are trapped in an alternate dimension controlled by the tall man. In this final installment, the tall man's power is at its peak as he controls entire armies of lurkers and silver spheres, and his dimensional conquest appears unstoppable. The film's ambiguous ending leaves the fate of the characters uncertain, but it reinforces the idea that the tall man is not just a villain, but a force of nature, eternal, inevitable, and beyond the comprehension of human beings. The tall man's abilities and powers. The tall man's powers are one of the most defining features of his character, setting him apart from other horror villains. While many horror antagonists rely on brute strength or supernatural immortality, the tall man's abilities are far more varied and otherworldly, contributing to his aura of terror, superhuman strength, and durability. From his first appearance, the tall man is shown to possess immense physical strength, easily overpowering his victims and lifting them off the ground with one hand. His durability is also remarkable, as he can survive injuries that would kill a normal person. Throughout the series, the tall man is shot, stabbed, and even set on fire, but he always returns seemingly unharmed. This makes him a relentless, unstoppable force, much like other classic horror villains. Shape, shifting, and illusions. One of the most terrifying aspects of the tall man is his ability to manipulate reality and shapeshift. He can change his form to appear as other characters, creating illusions that deceive and manipulate his victims. This ability allows him to blend into his surroundings or take on a more familiar appearance to lure people into his traps. In several instances, the tall man also demonstrates the ability to manipulate dreams and alter the perception of reality. His victims often experience dreamlike sequences where they are unsure whether what they are witnessing is real or imagined. This blurring of reality adds to the psychological horror of the Phantasm films, as the tall man is not just a physical threat but a mental one as well. Command over the dead. The tall man's control over the dead is central to his character. He has the ability to reanimate corpses, transforming them into lurkers, dwarfed, zombie-like creatures that serve him. These minions are sent to another dimension where they work for the tall man in a realm that is never fully explained but is suggested to be some sort of hellish afterlife or parallel world. In addition to the lurkers, the tall man can create other grotesque creatures, such as the Graver's reanimated corpses who serve as his foot soldiers, and the iconic silver spheres flying, metallic orbs that serve as deadly weapons, drilling into the heads of their victims. Dimensional travel and time manipulation. The tall man's most mysterious and powerful ability is his mastery over interdimensional travel. Throughout the Phantasm series, the tall man is seen using dimensional portals, often referred to as dimensional forks, to travel between worlds. These portals allow him to transport the dead to another dimension, where they are transformed into his servants. The nature of this other dimension is never fully explained, adding to the tall man's mystique. In Phantasm IV Oblivion, it is suggested that the tall man may also have some control over time, as he appears in different time periods and seems to manipulate events to his advantage. His ability to transcend time and space makes him an almost godlike figure, further reinforcing the existential horror he represents. Although the Phantasm series never reached the mainstream success of franchises like Halloween or Friday the 13th, the tall man has become a beloved figure in horror culture with a dedicated fan base and a lasting legacy. His unique blend of supernatural horror, science fiction, and surrealism has influenced other works in the genre and inspired various tributes, parodies, and homages. The tall man's blend of metaphysical and existential horror has influenced a range of horror films and filmmakers. The use of dream-like sequences, the manipulation of reality, and the blending of science fiction with traditional horror elements can be seen in later films such as A Nightmare on Elm Street 1984, which shares similar themes of blurred reality and dream manipulation. In fact, some fans of the genre have drawn comparisons between the tall man and Freddy Krueger, noting their shared ability to manipulate the dreams and perceptions of their victims. The tall man's cold, emotionless demeanor and his control over minions also influence later depictions of horror villains who command armies of undead or supernatural creatures. Films like Hellraiser 1987 and The Evil Dead 1981 feature similar otherworldly figures who manipulate the dead and control dimensions beyond our understanding. The tall man has been parodied and referenced in various media, particularly in animated shows and pop culture-oriented comedies. Shows like The Simpsons and Robot Chicken have included humorous nods to the Phantasm series, with the tall man's iconic line boy, often being used for comedic effect. In addition, Angus Scrimm's portrayal of the tall man has been celebrated by horror fans and filmmakers alike. Scrimm's imposing physical presence and chilling performance have made the tall man one of the most memorable villains in horror history. Even though Scrimm passed away in 2016, his portrayal of the tall man continues to resonate with audiences, and he remains an enduring symbol of fear in the horror genre. While the Phantasm films were never as commercially successful as other horror franchises, they have left a lasting impact on the genre due to their unique blend of surrealism, horror, and science fiction. The tall man's portrayal as a villain who transcends the boundaries of life and death, reality and dream, has made him a compelling and enduring figure in horror cinema. The Phantasm series is also notable for its loyal fan base, who continue to celebrate the films through conventions, fan art, and discussions. The franchise's ambiguous storytelling and open-ended mysteries have inspired numerous fan theories, with viewers debating the true nature of the tall man, the dimensional forks, and the ultimate meaning behind the events of the films. Sion. The tall man, as portrayed by Angus Scrimm, is one of the most unique and terrifying villains in horror history. His character transcends the typical slasher tropes, embodying a more existential form of horror that challenges the boundaries of life, death, and reality. With his ability to manipulate dimensions, control the dead, and induce fear through sheer presence, the tall man has left an indelible mark on the horror genre. The Phantasm series may not have the widespread recognition of some of its contemporaries, but it remains a beloved cult classic, largely due to the enigmatic and terrifying figure of the tall man. His legacy as a horror icon is secure, and his influence can be seen in films, television shows, and popular culture to this day. As a villain who embodies both physical and psychological terror, the tall man continues to haunt the nightmares of horror fans, ensuring his place in the pantheon of great cinematic villains. Subscribe to Bad Guy Compendium anywhere you get your podcast or at roguemedianetwork.com and get ready to delve into the minds of the most iconic villains in pop culture history. I've been your host, Finley Strong, and remember, evil never sleeps, but bad guys are forever.